Welcome back to the course. Sum is the most fundamental DAX function and the one you're probably going to use more than any other. We've already used it once in the course so far. Now let's really understand it. In this lesson, you will create multiple sum measures and see exactly how they respond to filters. So let's get into it. Okay, so we've already created total sales. So if we just take the total sales and we drop it on, we can see that we have our total sales. Let's go and create a measure for total cost. Just make that look a little bit better. So how do we create a measure? We can use the three dots, we can right click, or we can choose new measure. So let me click on the sales table because we want the measure to appear in the sales table. Can right click, new measure. Okay, so what we want is the total cost. So we first start with the name of the measure. We then need equals. We want to sum. So we start typing sum. We can push tab to finish that off. We then choose our table and we go down to the cost field. If I push tab now, it selects that and we can close it off because you can see the bracket is red. It needs another bracket at the end. So there we have total cost in the correct formatting. We have sum, we have our table name, and we have our field in that table in square brackets, and we close it off. Push enter, and you can see we have a total cost field or measure. So we can see now we can view our cost. Now you might be thinking, why do we need to create a measure for sales or measure for cost if we can just take the cost field, drag and drop it, and Power BI does the exact same thing for us by creating a sum and creating a KPI card here. The reason we need to have a measure created is because if ever we want to use total sales, quantity for example, or cost in another calculation, we need it to be a measure. Because, for example, if we are working out total profit and we want the total profit by category, we're going to have to create a new measure that uses the total sales measure minus the total cost measure will give us the answer of profit, and we can then drag and drop category onto the canvas. We would be able to take our total profit and drop it on, and it would automatically, dynamically calculate that profit. Because all of the measures we've used inside that measure are also working dynamically and calculating dynamically. So that's why, best practice, every metric you want to measure, always make sure that you have a measure for that metric. So that's why you might think we can use Power BI to do it for us, but we always want to create measures ourselves because we might want to use those measures dynamically inside other measures. So that would be the reason why we want to do that. So like I was saying, let's go and create a total profit measure now. Again, we can right click on the table, new measure. Now we want to create total profit. We do equals. And how do we want to calculate our total profit? We could do it from scratch and go sum. We could choose the sales table. We could say the sum of sales amount, and we could put a bracket there. And we could subtract the sum back into the sales table. We want the sum of the cost. And we can push enter. So what we've done there, just like we did on our individual measures, we've gone and we've calculated the sum in the sales table for amount and the sum in the sales table for cost. We push enter, we have a total profit measure. And if we look at that, if we drag it up here, you can see that if we subtract those two, that is the amount we get. So if we didn't have a measure for cost and a measure for sales, that is the way we could do it from scratch. So I'm just going to say this is version 1. Because we have those two dynamic measures already, we can have a measure nested inside another measure. So I'll show you how we can do that. I'm going to create total profit again. We're going to go is equal to. And now if we want to refer to a measure, we can start with a square bracket. And you can see it automatically brings up a list of our measures. So we want our total sales measure, and we want to subtract our total cost measure. So here we have two dynamic measures inside another measure. So if we look at total profit now, we drag that here, you can see we get exactly the same as the other version. This version here, we are going and we are calculating the sales amount and the cost amount in our profit measure, where in the other measure we are referring to our measures that we've already created. So this would be the best practice, to do it this way. If we were never going to look at metrics that like sales and cost on their own, you could do it this way. But we do know that we're probably going to have to show cost somewhere, and we're probably going to have to show sales somewhere. So let's give them each their own measure. So we can show sales wherever we want to show sales, we can show cost wherever we want to show cost, and we can show our profit wherever we want to show profit too. So you can see that this is the best practice, to have everything dynamic. And if, for example, we take some of our drop downs here and we copy and I paste them here, this sync visuals option is if I filter by year here, it will filter the year drop down on the sales performance tab too. We don't need to do that, so I'm going to say no. But now if we go and we filter, you can see everything filters perfectly. You can see total cost, sum of cost, profit, etc. So that is why we want to have our independent measures over here. So just some key points. Sum respects filter context automatically. So when we filter, whether we're doing it this way or that way, they're both going to have the filter context applied. It's always better to create explicit measures rather than relying on the auto aggregation. So always good to have our own total sales measure, then dragging and dropping amount and letting Power BI create a calculation for us. We always want to name our measures clearly so that when we add them to a report, the naming is correct. We don't have to go back and update each card. Like for example, this here wouldn't look good. We would want it to be something like total profit. We wouldn't want version 1 or previous or whatever the case. And then we can do arithmetic between sum calls, meaning if we use sum, we can do arithmetic between two different fields within a measure, or we can apply the dynamic measures too. So those are two ways of being able to do it. But if we're ever going to refer to this on its own, meaning the sum of sales amount, or we're going to use this on its own for cost, we would want their own measures to be created. So basically, to round it up, sum is the foundation. Every percentage, every comparison, every conditional measure you build later will reference these sum measures. So get in the habit of creating them explicitly for every number in your report. In the next lesson, we're going to turn these totals into percentages safely using divide. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.